In this video I will show how to repair vintage amplifier with a dead channel, one or more depending on the device, but in this case left channel is working fine and right channel is dead silent. And as I mentioned in my previous video, I will make another video where I'm changing the electrolytic capacitors for vintage audio devices, and this is the case here because there is a couple of capacitors which are worn out and needs to be replaced, and that's most likely the cause in this case why that right channel is silent. One another thing is that there's a speaker protection relay in these devices, and those relays are another reason why one or more channels are silent, because over the time those contact points inside the relay are worn out and then the electricity won't go through, and this will cause the speaker to go silent. So next I'm going to show how to diagnose a faulty electrolytic capacitor and how to replace that, and also how to replace the speaker protection relay. Okay, it seems like my diagnose for the leaking electrolytic capacitor was correct. For example, here we can see some leaking stuff which is dried out, but it's probably from inside. And I noticed that this one has a dome on top of it and this one is flat, so there's something wrong with that also. So even though one of the channels is still working, I guess it won't work long because other is dome shaped and other is clearly leaked. So I'm going to replace both of these, and this amplifier is from the 80s, and now when I ordered new parts it's much smaller, at least from the height, and this is actually bigger when it comes to microfarads, the value. If you search and can't find the exact component, you can always select a little bit higher microfarad value. For example, these are 5600 and I'm choosing the 6800, which is the next available size. The most important thing is that the voltage is correct, so in this case 50 volts or higher, but of course you don't want to overkill things, but never go lower with volts or microfarads. For the capacitor change, it's easy to identify those correct pins by pointing a light through the PCB, so the PCB is glowing when the flashlight is strong enough, and we can see where those capacitors are, and therefore it's easy to identify the pins. And same thing for the relay. Relay makes the big shadow here, so I know these pins are correct ones, and I can of course compare with the new relay that these are the pins I'm looking for. Next I'm going to replace those two capacitors and one relay. Of course, always when you take the PCB out, it's a smart thing to check the soldering joints that those are looking good. So for example here there is something wrong with these ones. Maybe somebody has been fixing this before, but these joints are not looking good, so I'm going to re-solder well, I think all of these, just to make sure that there's nothing wrong with those. Sometimes these PCBs can have cold joint from the factory, so that's why it's a good thing to resolder everything while the PCB is out. Now everything is back together. Time to test. Speakers on the back are connected. There's some random radio channel. Yeah, sound is coming through. And then testing the left and right. Left, right. Right is maybe slightly lower in volume than the left. Just enough to hear the difference, but there's some other components that may affect it. But main point is that both channels are now working. And when it comes to electrolytic capacitors, few things to remember. The voltage, for example 45 volts, can be higher, much higher, without any effect. It's actually a better thing if you replace it with higher voltage, but the microfarad value should be always the same. If this is not available size, then slightly bigger, but never less, and voltage also nevertheless. And of course there's a stripe indicating that it's an electrolytic capacitor, so minus is the one that is marked, and it should be always mounted in the same way, because otherwise you will get smoke out of this. So hopefully you now know how to replace electrolytic capacitors and the speaker protection relay, and you now have a working amplifier.